The other day I had an email from somebody asking about modeling a box like this, and he's struggling with the dovetails. So I thought that'd be a good topic for a blog post. As you can see, the dovetails are cut at an angle, and in any case, let's take a look at one way to do that. Alright, so here's our new model, and I'm going to start with the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle for this box. I'm not going to make the box the full length to start with. I'll fix that later. It just saves me a little space and makes it easier to show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to make the box side 12 by 3/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to pull it up 5 5/8 because that's the height of the side, or the width of the side before it's angled. And then I'm going to go ahead and select all of that geometry and rotate this to the 30 degrees. I'm going to do that before I make it a component because I want to leverage a thing I'll show you in a minute. I'm also going to place a guideline, there we go, guidelines at, I'm just putting it on the green axis, and then one along this inside edge, and then with a double click I'll select just the inside face of the box and use move, follow that guideline down to the intersection of the two guidelines. So now I've put the bevel on the top and bottom of the box, and triple click to select all of that, make it a component, and we'll call it long side. It will be long later. And then I'm going to make a copy of this, and I'm going to move it down here, and then the rotate tool, and I'm going to rotate that around. So now I've got two sides of the box, and currently they're the same component. I will break that because of the difference in the two pieces when we get that far. I'm also going to put in a guideline on the red axis here, and then I'll open this copy here, double click on the bottom to select the face and its edges, get the scale tool, and I'm going to hold Control. It would be Option on the Mac, and I'm going to bring this edge in to the guideline. Unfortunately, the scale tool won't snap to the edge of the other instance of the component, so that's why the guideline is there. But now I've got the sides of my box beveled on the top and the bottom, and mitered to the correct angle on the ends, and they're overlapping. Alright, now that the shape of the parts is correct other than that length, I'm going to right click on this one, and I'm going to choose Make Unique, and then I'm going to immediately change the name of it before I forget to short side. I'm doing that in Entity Info. Alright, and eventually I'm going to have the other two sides, but I don't need those just yet. So I'm going to lay out a couple of guidelines here. I need one there, and I'm going to follow up the guideline. Make sure you're not going either in the blue direction or some other direction. In this case, we want to see that line trailing the purple dot. We want to see that as gray or black. And I'm going to use 1/4 of an inch for the width of this. You can do, of course, whatever you want here, but so I'm going to have a 1/2 inch wide gap there, and I just played around with some angles here before I started this, and I decided, okay, so that, let me go back for a moment. You see how the protractor is black and not green. We also want to see that here. That represents that we're on that face. And I want to keep that same orientation for the next guideline, so I'm going to hit the down arrow key, down cursor key, and that locks that direction. And then this one I'm going to go 108. You can do whatever you want for these angles. It's just seemed like it worked well for what I'm laying out here. And now I'm going to trace these, and I'm going along that line there. I'm going to hold the shift key and maintain that. In fact, I'll just do that, or I could have pushed the down arrow key again. So that's my layout lines for the dovetail pins. And now I'm going to copy those lines down to the bottom with the move copy, hit enter, divide by 3, and that'll give me the layout for all of these things. I'm going to delete the guides. I actually have a keyboard shortcut for that, but I'll show you in the edit menu, because we're finished with those guidelines. And now I'm going to make a component of these lines. These are going to get exploded shortly, but I want to keep a copy just in case. And I don't need to give it a name, but alright, so now we're ready to make the rest of the box. I'll do that before I cut the dovetail sockets, but with that selected, I'm going to select the front side and use move copy this back in the green direction, and then I'm going to flip along the green direction. It's the same direction, I just moved it. Didn't quite move it in the right spot. Let's grab it there, put it at that corner, and then I'm going to select that original dovetail layout and the end of the box, and let's move that down here somewhere in the red direction, and then right click and flip along the red. I do have a keyboard shortcut for that as well, but there we go. So now I've got everything I need to cut the dovetails. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to select this layout component and explode it. And while those are exploded, I'll cut that to the clipboard. And then I'm going to open this component for editing, and then I'm going to use edit, paste in place. And so now that geometry has been added into the component. I don't need the top and bottom there where the dovetails run off. And now for the next step, I'm going to use an extension called joint push pull, and the tool from that is called vector push pull. And what I want to do here is I want to make sure, first of all, I'm erasing the geometry. So for finishing, I've got the yellow button selected, and I want to go in the Y direction. So I'm going to click on the Y button there, and then actually before I do that, I should have, just to make this faster, I should select the faces. Let's see if you can see that here. I could hide the, in fact, let me hide the other components so you can see that better. Alright, good enough. Now let's get this vector push pull. Again, finishing and the Y direction, and I'm going to come back to the back edge, and then I just have to erase those. I'm not quite sure why it doesn't erase the face, but it doesn't matter that much. It's pretty quick to get rid of that. And you can see that both components now have that done to them. I'm going to open this component, since the dovetail layout is still on the clipboard, and I'll paste that in place, and then I'll repeat the process, although this time I'm going to bring back my other sides so that I can push in and use the other side as my reference. And if I turn off, get rid of that again, you can see now I've got the sockets cut there. Or actually I have the pins. Alright, let's do the other side of this and create the other pins. So I'm going to select this component, I'm going to explode it, cut it to the clipboard. I'm using a keyboard shortcut this time. I'll paste that in place, again keyboard shortcut. Erase what I don't want. And I have a keyboard shortcut set up to hide the other components in the model. Vector push pull, grab at one point, go to the next point. Let's turn that off again. You can see, oops, you can see now my pins are cut on both ends. Now we have one corner left to do, so I'll select this one, explode, cut to the clipboard, open this component for editing, paste in place. It's the same process multiple times. The neat thing about joint push-pull is that it lets you do multiple faces in one go. So it's very quick that way. And with the vector push-pull, you don't have to push perpendicular to the face. Alright, so that's the dovetail joints cut. And then to add to the length of the box, I'm just going to move that down. It's supposed to be 20 inches. And then I'll open this component for editing, and actually let's bring the other component back. Then we don't have to enter a dimension, we just bring it down till it hits the other line, and there's the sides of the box dovetailed. Hopefully that made sense and didn't go too fast. Give it a try, and I think you'll find it works pretty well.